have all these speakers. I'm going to ask each of them to speak from a period of between 5 to 7 minutes. We'll then go to questions and answers for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we'll try and close it within the hour, if that's okay. So, Annaïg, would you like to kick it off and speak to some issues with this legislation as you see it? And thank you very much for joining us.
So thank you, Ronan, and to everyone joining for giving me the opportunity to address the issues pertaining to the surrogacy, specifically the surrogacy elements of the legislation. I'm a concerned advocate for both women's rights and gay rights, and I find it deeply troubling that potential exploitation inherent in legalizing surrogacy is being brought as a gay rights issue. Many of the groups that were consulted prior to the actual legislation and passing through the Dáil were LGBT or gay rights organisations, and they are all on the pro-surrogacy side, as Ronan said. While the fight for equality and freedom of choice is paramount, we must scrutinise the ethical and moral implications of surrogacy, especially commercialised surrogacy, which is what happens in international cases. The presumption that access to reproductive technology should be extended under the banner of gay rights overshadows the serious and complex concerns surrounding surrogacy practices. It is alarming that these issues have not been adequately addressed in the proposed bill due to a consultation process heavily weighted in favour of surrogacy. First and foremost, we must confront the reality that surrogacy commodifies women's bodies and turns babies into products to be purchased. This commodification is not a gay rights issue, rather it is a fundamental human rights issue. Opposition to surrogacy is not anti-LGBTQIA+. It is a stance against the exploitation and commercialization of human life. As a same-sex attracted individual, I understand the struggles faced by our community in achieving equal rights, particularly when starting a family. However, leveraging our fight for equality to justify the commercialization of surrogacy is both inappropriate and disingenuous. Statistics indicate that only 25 to 33% of couples who commission a surrogate are in same-sex relationships. This fact undermines the argument that surrogacy is a pressing issue for the LGBT community as its extended acronym. Using gay rights as a vehicle to advance surrogacy legislation undermines decades of positive activism and risks alienating many within our community who do not support such practices. In both houses of the Oireachtas, we heard claims that opposing surrogacy is anti-choice. This deliberate comparison to views on abortion is nothing short of insulting. I firmly believe that women should have access to reproductive care, including abortions where necessary. I voted yes in 2018 on the basis that I know women should have the right to bodily autonomy and to have the right to control her reproductive decisions. In the instance of abortion, it is a woman making the decision about her own body, her own health, and her own life. In the case of surrogacy, it is wealthy couples asking another woman to pause her own life to take hundreds of hormonal injections to put her body and indeed her life at risk, with the promise of a monthly payment, which has been washed of its reality by dubbing this 2,000 to 4,000 on average monthly salary as reasonable expenses. Surrogacy remains an extremely contentious issue globally, with many countries opting to outlaw or heavily regulate it due to the evidence of exploitation and its potential for abuse. The removal of a baby from its mother at delivery contradicts everything we know about the importance of mother-child bond, attachment, and maternal mental health. The proposed legislation in Ireland threatens to expand the industry with potentially significant long-term ramifications for children without adequate research or consideration. This is particularly concerning given Ireland's historical failures in protecting vulnerable women and children. Furthermore, the proposed bill does not sufficiently address the likelihood of women from vulnerable backgrounds and those in coercive and controlling relationships entering into surrogacy arrangements unwillingly. I don't see how this is a gay rights issue. Several LGBT organisations have advocated for even further leniency within the provisions of the bill, arguing that same-sex couples must be entitled to commission a surrogate. In July 2022, LGBT Ireland and Irish Gay Dads published proposed amendments to the bill, suggesting various elements were discriminatory towards a variety of minorities, including gay couples, and people with disabilities. In Part 7 of their document, under the section pertaining to Section 50 of the bill, permitted surrogacy, they oppose the criminalisation of intending parents who do not enter into surrogacy arrangements that meet the criteria such as age, location, etc. of the surrogate. I would ask why we are legislating at all if some people can choose to ignore the criteria list because they want a child. I'd suggest that if you cannot meet the already very liberal criteria set out in the proposed legislation, then you do not have the right to commission a surrogate. Not all in the extended LGBT community believe we have the right to treat another woman's body as an incubator or a purchasable service merely to serve our desire to have a family. No one, regardless of sexual orientation, should be entitled to purchase a child. The ethical issues surrounding surrogacy, particularly the rights and well-being of the surrogate mother and the child, remain unresolved. As a lesbian who would love nothing more than to be able to be a mother someday, I had to come to terms with a very simple fact that I am same-sex attracted and will therefore never be able to procreate with just my partner alone. I've spent much time being very distraught and crying over this fact with previous partners. But as adults in same-sex relationships, we must accept the fact that two sperm cannot create a child, neither can two oocytes. Does this entitle us to request a woman in a country in a much more precarious financial state than our own to provide us with a child? Absolutely not. In addition to these concerns, we must consider the troubling fact that many of the countries allowing for international surrogacy harbour strong prejudices against same-sex individuals, or even impose severe criminal punishments for homosexuality. For instance, Kenya, one of the countries that allows for international surrogacy, criminalises same-sex relationships with severe penalties of up to 14 years in prison. It is paradoxical and morally questionable that a country refusing to recognise same-sex couples domestically would permit the commodification of their women and sale of babies born in their country to gay couples abroad. How can this be framed as a gay right when it directly contradicts the principles of equality and non-discrimination that we strive for? Moreover, I must address the common argument made by pro-surrogacy LGBT organisations and individuals who compare gay men accessing surrogacy to lesbian couples accessing sperm donation. This comparison is deeply insulting, equating semen in a cup to complex and risk-laden processes of embryo transfers, pregnancy, labour, childbirth, and postnatal recovery is profoundly disrespectful to those women. It ignores the immense physical, emotional, and health-related burdens placed on women who act as surrogates. Pregnancy and childbirth carry significant risks, including complications that can affect a woman's health and well-being long-term. This false equivalence minimises the sacrifices and potential dangers involved in surrogacy, further highlighting the exploitation inherent in these arrangements. Additionally, it is not only an abhorrent weaponisation of gay people's genuine struggles for public representatives and NGOs to flagrantly use the terms far-right or anti-LGBT as a means to shut down any and all opposition to surrogacy. This tactic is not only intellectually dishonest, but also deeply divisive. It stifles legitimate debate and silences diverse perspectives within our community. Such accusations are harmful and undermine the integrity of our discourse, making it difficult to have meaningful and constructive discussions on critical issues. Finally, this bill seems to focus on the desires of the intending parents rather than the safety and well-being of the surrogate mother and the child. As a young woman, I deeply sympathise with anyone affected by infertility, especially those who experience traumatic health conditions, treatments, or surgeries. I understand the longing to be a mother, and it is painful, but how can we legislate to turn human beings into services and goods as long as we can afford it? Not all gays believe that we should. Thank you.